Hello, everybody. My name is Edward S. Redcar, and I'm the host of Edward S. Redcar's Entertainer Chat. And today I have the awesome pleasure of speaking with Michael Lake. And how are you doing today, Michael?
Doing very well, thanks. How are you?
Good, good. It's good to have you here, and thank you for graciously accepting my invitation to be on my show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And just before we start here, I'd like to kind of let all of our viewers know that you're Zooming, well, live now, but this is going to be recorded. You're Zooming live right now from Toronto, Canada, is it?
Oh, yeah, that's correct.
Okay, okay. I know because on the social media, Instagram and Facebook, I see you have projects all over the place. So
Yeah,
sometimes I see you post and you're in New York City. Sometimes I see you post in your other film festivals. So I don't
yeah,
exactly know where you are. So I kind of thought I'd pinpoint it for myself and the viewers just to kind of give them an idea where you are now. So yeah, like
yeah.
I said, it's a pleasure to have you on my show. And usually, what I do when I start my show, whether it's a actor, singer, dancer, musician, whatever, I'm always curious to know how they got involved in the career that they're presently in. So I'll pose that question to you, and this is sort of kind of a three-pronged question because I know you're into absolutely everything, different phases of
Yeah.
performing. Um, how did you become interested in acting and writing and filmmaking?
For sure. It always kind of just was what I wanted to do. I watched so much TV and so many movies as a kid that I was just like fascinated by the idea of like how it all kind of came together. And when I was a young kid, probably about 7 or 8, I just really needed something to do with my spare time. So I wasn't very athletic. So my parents enrolled me in this like drama school, still running to this day, I believe. This place called Young People's Theater in Toronto, and that just like became my life for like the next 10 years. It was what I would do uh, like every Saturday and like some summers and stuff like that. And I actually ended up working at the theater when I was a little bit older. So just that like idea of like drama school and like acting camp always being like a fun kind of safe friendly place to be was what really drew me to do it as a career.
Yeah, what you talk about of young people's theater, we had something similar where I am here in Central New York years and years ago. It was called the Young People's Theater also, and it was in our area. And
Yeah,
probably you found yourself that was a great place to learn the basics of performing, right?
pretty much. Yeah, we would do all sorts of like interesting exercises and kid friendly sort of games and stuff, but it always kind of culminate in like a big sort of show at the end of the semester or summer or whatever it was. So yeah, and you'd always just like find because obviously it was a drama school, you would just find sort of like-minded people who are really interested in that. I didn't know a lot of people who were really intensely interested in that in my like everyday life, if you want to call it. So it was just a really good place for kids to kind of collaborate and work on their own stuff together.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
sort of that was sort of a good incubator. That's that's about the
Yeah.
only way that I can term it. It was a good like incubator to cultivate
Yeah.
your acting interest and things like that. So in that young people's theater, did you spend maybe half of the time learning about the craft, about your presence on stage, learning lines, and then maybe half of the time like improv exercises? Because I know that we did that in the young people's theater when I was here. So was it sort of 50-50, 60-40, or
Yeah, there was a lot of that when I was like fairly new to the program, like when the curriculum was kind of for like young kids. But by the time I was in high school, it there was like this sort of conservatory kind of like aspect to the school where they took it like a lot more seriously, and it was like really like intense. You went practically every single day, and you were, I think by that time you were kind of focusing on one main project. Like there was sort of like a year-end kind of presentation, but yeah, so it kind of I was there for so long that I kind of slowly transitioned from like that kind of just like fun, freeing, dramatic exercise kind of thing to like that being your work. Yeah.
Right. So that cultivated the your interest, and so then, like they say, the rest is history, right? That was sort of
Yeah.
the jumping point or the launching pad for what you wanted to do, like with the rest of your life, as we
Yeah,
all
pretty
do.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Right out of there, I was just trying to pursue it on my own as well. I was going to lots of auditions, doing lots of like community theater and fringe theater and like auditioning for films and TV and all that kind of
mhm,
stuff.
mhm.
Yeah.
So since you mentioned about films, um, I'll ask you this now. Okay, you had like the basis for your acting, the
Mhm.
groundwork for your acting with the Young People's Theater. Now, filmmaking. Now, how and when did that come into play along your performing journey?
I think as a kid, I watched a lot of movies, and I even then kind of like thought it's one thing to be like an actor, and also had this kind of seed in my mind of being like a content creator, like having to kind of find your own work and make your own work and discover your own things. Like I always was really interested in that, even as a kid. But the actual practicality of like producing films came like many, many years into acting. I sort of realized like at a certain point that, you know, I had it within myself and my friends and that our sort of circles and stuff that we could just start developing our own content. And, there's no use waiting around for the right project to come along if you can kind of just make it yourself. So um, it probably was not relatively recently. It's been quite a few years since, but I had primarily just focused on acting before I ever considered like anything else. And then I realized that the production side of things, I'm not a very technically skilled person. Like I'm not director, I'm not crew, but I really do love kind of producing content with my friends, sort
Mhm,
of culling the right talent and
mhm,
finding the right people to work with and finding really interesting scripts and figuring out how we can get them made. I really do love that stuff. And I
mhm.
think, um, yeah, we can all just support each other that way.
Right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
you bring up an interesting point about creating your own content. I
Yeah.
know I've often heard, I mean, especially today, there's so much technology out there, so many tools available, like the
Yeah.
Zoom that we're on now. And I've always heard, and in my training, the advice was to, like you alluded to, create your own content. It's like don't
Hmm.
wait around for things to come to you. If you feel the creative energy, or however you want to describe it, start
Yeah.
creating yourself. So it seems like that's the path that you took.
Yeah, for sure. Like, yeah, I guess it kind of just grew out of this desire to always want to be doing something. So, if I see potential in a project, I really do want to help get it made however I can.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
So so then in your projects, you really wear a lot of hats, right? Sort of delegate things that you feel that maybe others are more attuned to, and kind of concentrate your
Mhm.
focus on what you want to do, right?
Yeah, for sure. It does vary project to project. There's lots of things that, I've just come onto as an actor and, they've already got the infrastructure in place or whatever. They're going to make the film their way. But then there are lots of projects where it's kind of more built from the ground up and have a bunch of meetings about how we're going to do it and what it's going to involve and stuff like that. And,
Mhm.
both are very different processes, but I find both like equally fascinating and always fun.
Mhm. Well, one of the aspects that you're talented besides your acting and your filmmaking is your writing. And I've been in several projects where
Yeah.
you've been the writer, co-written with our good
Mhm.
friend Bella Duvet. And
Yeah.
how did the interest in writing come along? Was that, say, in between your interest when you were first interested in acting, and before filmmaking, or was it after filmmaking you maybe decided, well, I'd like to write? How did the writing aspect actually start?
So the interest in writing actually came very, very early because both of my parents are actually writers, attended journalism school, and as did my brother. So my whole family unit was very intense about spelling and grammar and formatting and all that stuff. English was always a favorite subject of mine. I was always a very voracious reader as a kid up till now. Um, so yeah, I really, really liked the like idea of writing. I don't think I ever knew what it was going to be, whether it was like screenplays or books or like whatever, but just yeah, the idea of writing always really, really interested me. And then it kind of did align with this desire to just, make more of my own stuff and make some more stuff with my friends.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
I do find sometimes I can be very singular in the writing process. Like sometimes I think it's just a matter of like getting my own ideas out there. But I think I ultimately prefer kind of writing with someone. We can be each other's sounding boards and we can kind of share ideas and build ideas from the ground up and kind of give each other feedback. If I know that I'm going to be acting in the project, I also do like to be kind of involved, a little bit, however tangentially in the writing process, because I feel like it's really important if like the words you're saying. I like to always make sure that the dialogue is kind of
mhm.
true and sort of the style sort of works with how I'd perform it and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm very much a a word nerd, a vocabulary nerd. Like I love all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like that was really a great environment for you to grow up in. With,
Hmm.
I mean, your whole family being interested in writing, and that
Yeah.
was actually their careers. So, were there any times, say, like growing up at home, where, say, if you were writing something on your own, you could go like to either one of your parents or your brother and say, "Hey, I'm trying to write on something. I'm trying to learn. I'm kind of stuck here. Can you kind of get me over the bump here and, give me a hand?" Was that ever, present in your home, to say, "Hey, I need help"?
Yeah, a little bit. I definitely would, ask for help or ask questions if it was something like very practical or technical about the writing. But I feel like I didn't even really share a lot of what I wrote. I felt like I just had these like stories in my head, and I would just sort of privately just like jot them down because I thought they were amusing or interesting or whatever. But yeah, no, there was always in our house a community of like I don't know, I guess sharing ideas and helping each other with stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good nurturing environment. I know, like other guests that I've had, they've been either like singers or actors like
Mhm.
yourself, and or musicians, and there was always like music in the house if they were musicians, and
Mhm.
were always encouraged to kind of develop their art. So yeah, something like that really helps you nurture your
Mhm.
your natural talent, whatever it may be. So
Yeah, 100%.
yeah, yeah. Um, you're involved with the production companies, and
Mhm.
one of the production companies is Hollow Ground Pictures, and
Yes.
I've always been curious now how did that name come about, and how long has that company existed?
Yeah, that company actually does predate me in a sense. My really good friend, my best friend, Stuart G. Robertson, he has been making movies since before we knew each other. And he directed a movie uh, back in 2007, around then, way before we knew each other. And it was this like first kind of like indie sort of self-funded film called Playing Cards. And that film was produced under the moniker Hollow Ground Pictures. Um, Cut forward to years later, he and I became friends. we worked together on a couple projects, and then we realized, we really wanted to expand this whole brand of ours as a company. And he had already sort of attached his first couple films to this name, Hologround Pictures, and we batted it around a little bit, but I think ultimately it just fit really well. It kind of had like an interesting sort of like name and a kind of cool ring to it. So we sort of just stuck with that name, Hologround Pictures.
Yeah.
Um,
So in
yeah,
other words, you settled on a name, like they say, it has a good hook to it, right? It has the type of the name that people are going to
yeah,
remember, right?
yeah,
Hollow
yeah.
ground. Oh my God, hollow ground. Oh my God, what is that? I've got to know more about this, right? I've got to know.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like
Yeah.
it seemed to just feel right for the sort of content that we made. And I can't claim responsibility for that name, but it's just like when I heard it, I'm just like, hollow ground. Yeah, okay, that
Yeah,
works.
yeah. Hollow ground. Let's go with it. Let's run with it. It sounds like it's going to
Yeah,
be pretty successful. So yeah, why not?
yeah.
Yeah, another production company that is very intriguing. It's very spooky. Uh,
Mhm.
it's called Haunted Unit Films. So I'll ask you the same question about that. How did that name come about, and how long has that been in existence?
That came about through a series of brainstorming sessions with our mutual friend, Bella,
Uh-huh.
who you name dropped earlier in the podcast.
Yeah.
Um, we I think it sort of came about because we were talking about how the one of the most recognizable kind of tropes or ideas in the horror genre is the haunted house. So we just thought, well, you know, housing market being what it is, why not a haunted unit instead? Um, but yeah, it kind of just had a similar sort of like ring to it. I don't know. It kind of just felt right when we settled upon it. Um, and yeah, we've just sort of stuck with that name for like some of the films we've released. That was sort of just born out of again that sort of necessity to want to do something, to collaborate with friends. Bella and I met virtually, much as we did through
Mhm.
another production company, Loud Voices Sound Streets,
Right, right, right.
and we just became friends through working through other people's projects, and then decided, it was kind of a good fit. We had very similar interests and had we were just always kind of batting around ideas and brainstorming, like, could this be a film, or how could we make this into a film? So it just sort of made sense to put all our projects together under that name of Haunted Unit.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and uh, I know we've been involved in several different projects
Hmm.
with Bella. Both you and Bella, I mean, very good writers. I always enjoy anytime you have a project and you ask me to come aboard, and it's almost
Yeah,
like it's a no-brainer. It's like, of course I
yeah,
will. I mean, I enjoyed working with the both of you so much, and yeah, uh, like with the hollow ground pictures, that haunted unit films. The name is a good hook, which people will
hmm,
remember, and probably especially that name comes in handy to haunted unit films, especially around like Halloween, whenever you want to kind of delve
hmm.
into the murky depths of Halloween. So that haunted unit films kind of gives you like kind of the added punch. It's like
Yeah,
this film by Haunted Unit Films at Halloween, come to a theater near you, something
pretty
like
much. Yeah, that was part of the idea too. We just wanted it to be very like direct, give some idea of what the content was going to be right away.
right, 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 right. Well, like they say, there's no use beating around the bush. If you got something to put out there and you got something to say, just put it out there and see where it lands. And
Mhm.
fortunately for you, it's been of a lot of success with that, and for Hollow Ground Pictures. And uh, uh, I wish you much more success with both of those, as I know there will be. I mean,
Thank you
it's
very
like,
much.
yeah, it's like I always can't wait to see what you or either one of those or Bella are going to post. It's like, it's like what's coming
Hmm.
up next. So it keeps that the intrigue factor there. So
Yeah, I very much feel the same way too, because pretty much all of my partners and collaborators have a very good habit of knowing how to surprise even me, and applying me with ideas that are just always so fun and like fresh and so very different. So even if I'm kind of working on the inside of the company, I work with tons of really really cool people who are always just
mhm.
like fascinating me with their really unique new ideas.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of new ideas, you gave me a good segue into my next questions, talking about new
Yeah.
ideas. So, uh, in both of these production companies that we just been talking about, are there any projects in particular that you'd like to talk about that are maybe upcoming that you are allowed to talk about without, like they say, spilling the beans on anything new that's coming out?
Sure. Yeah. We've had a pretty exciting couple of years for Hologram Pictures. Our film Edwin, it went around quite a few film festivals and is now kind of making its way to a streaming platform, which is really cool, really exciting. And Stuart and I have collaborated on multiple films since then. We did a sort of mystery kind of film last year called The Dark Factor, which takes place in the world of true crime podcasting. So I expect that to be out somewhat soon. And another one of our films, My Dying Heart, sort of had a similar path as Edwin. Very different kind of film, sort of, kind of styled with the same brush, but a very different sort of film. And we're hoping to kind of continue that particular story as well, My Dying
Mhm,
Heart, in
mhm,
like a sequel or, potentially a couple movies. And as for haunted unit films, yeah, we've got quite a few ideas in the pipeline too. We've been filming some other projects and kind of brainstorming some other projects and trying to figure out what to do with our existing films. So yeah, the thing I do like about, working with creative people is there's always something in motion, always something to be excited about or look forward to.
mhm. Yeah, you mentioned about Edwin. I
Yeah.
remember when that first came out, and then it's like you were posting it like all over the place. It's like I know Michael. I mean, even though I know him virtually, I've never met you personally. But I
Yeah.
says, I says no. I says that can't be Michael. Michael can't be Edwin. I mean, is that a side
Yeah.
of him that I don't know about? It's like, I mean, that was a really scary movie. I mean, kudos to you and everybody on there. I mean, you
Yeah.
did an
Yeah,
excellent job.
I really appreciate that. That was one of the things that was definitely compelling about that script, that kind of interesting sort of duality to the character.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, it was such a seemingly simple kind of story that took so many twists and turns. I think that was the first time I've really kind of ever read a script in one sitting and just immediately had to say like, I really want to make this. I practically want to make this like yesterday. That was actually my first time producing as well. So we very much did take that approach I was talking about earlier of like, how do we make this? What has to be done? Because we have to make it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know that's the first thing that I know is it's like
Mhm.
I've seen you, in other films before, but it's like this was like a total transformation, like
Oh, I appreciate it.
100, I mean, 180 degrees, and it was like
Yeah.
it's like you really took it, notched it up
Mhm.
like to the next level. So yeah,
Oh, thank you very much.
um, uh,
Yeah, I'm glad people continue to enjoy the film, and hopefully many more people will get to watch the film
oh
now.
yeah, 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 yeah. It's like I know like you said, when you first read the script, you couldn't put it down. You had to read it all the way through. It's like when I was watching, it's like I was on the edge of my seat, and it's like
Yeah.
I don't want to get up to go get a soda, and, in a bowl of popcorn. I says I don't even want to stop this. I don't even want to pause it. I says yeah,
Yeah.
like they say, inquiring minds want to know, and I wanted to know how it was going to finish. So and I think a lot of other people out there felt the same way. And
Mm. Thank you very much.
speaking of murder mysteries, the genre of murder mysteries, any of your future projects that you have planned? Are there any other genres besides like murder mysteries that you have plans to make, or maybe would someday like to delve into for your films?
Yeah, absolutely. I really like just sort of very grounded, very human kind of stories. I really like, stories about families and relationships. And our mutual friend Ella Muscroft and
Mm,
I worked on a film together last year, which was two artists in a relationship, and quite
yes.
literally, the whole thing was just us talking about our relationship and the dynamic of our relationship. Um, Stuff like that really compels me, just like really kind of uh, intense, almost kind of like theatrical sort of dialogue. I find that really fun and as an actor.
Mhm.
Um, and my friend actually, another film I've posted about a fair bit, Purgatory. My friend, the writer and director Jonathan Regis, he's making a new film, and he actually explicitly told me in like one of our earliest conversations, I don't want to do another horror film. I want to make this a drama, like a straight
Right,
drama,
right.
traditional sort of drama, traditional, but also kind of unexpected in certain ways. So he was like, yeah, I just want to explore an entirely different genre. Lots of independent movies do veer into the kind of horror or psychological route, which is, awesome stuff I very much love. But he decided we're going to go in a very different direction.
Mhm.
And he just wrote this very different, very kind of melancholy sort of uh, drama about like this struggling family and this writer who's struggling with an addiction and stuff like that. So I'm attached to that project, and I'm really excited about where that can take us.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
you mentioned our mutual friend and fellow uh, actor Ella
Mhm.
Muscroft. That one film that you were in with her. Now it'll almost be like a year come next month, July, that you also performed that on the stage with her, right?
Yeah, that was an amazing experience, a very unique one too, to present the exact same story in two different formats.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Like we filmed it as a film and we rehearsed it and performed it as a play. That was a really interesting exercise. I can't think of any time I've really played the same character twice
Yeah,
in such close proximity and also in such a different way. Just a very unique experience, like I
yeah,
said.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I was going to say that's very unique, and I
yeah,
think I think it's really like innovative too. You know, it's like, uh, I mean, I don't know, I can't think of offhand where anything has
mhm.
been done, in play and then in film, like back to back. I mean, there's been plays that have been brought to the
Yeah,
stage, and then later on,
yeah.
a screenwriter came along and they brought it, on the big screen or whatever. But
Mhm.
yeah, I felt that that was like very innovative and creative, and did you find that like the acting uh, was different, maybe in some ways, maybe like the relationship acting against each other on film and on stage, or was it mostly like the same type of like theatrical connection, between you two?
Yeah, I think we maintained the same sort of intensity and connection. Um, I think I would sort of liken it to the film experience being a sprint and the theater experience being a marathon because film we had to um, it's all very technical. You have to shoot it in a particular way. You're on a more practical kind of set. You have to block it differently for the camera and that sort of stuff. Whereas the theatrical version of it, we just went all out. It was an hour-long piece. Pretty much the entire piece is the two of us talking. So it was just like an intense amount of dialogue to remember, intense amount of blocking to remember, and it was you've got to make certain modifications for the way you present it. So like there was like some subtle sort of differences in the two different versions. which I think is very cool too. You know, some people will have seen the stage version, some people will have only seen the film version. Um, so yeah, it was like it very much felt like one whole experience that sort of splintered off into two separate experiences.
And then again, just to take this further, that that must have been a like a surreal experience, because up until then, you had only met each other like virtually, as with also, I believe, let's see, Bella came to see it, Bex's Barlow, she came to see it,
Yeah,
George,
yeah,
George Vec, he came to see it, and it's like it's the
yeah,
very first time that all of you ever met each other in person. So,
for
uh,
sure.
did that,
Bex
yeah,
Bex Barlow actually directed the piece as well. I
yes,
neglected
yes,
to
that's
mention that,
right.
but yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
Um, had a great time working with them. Yeah, that was definitely surreal. You know, throughout this whole kind of era of making things virtually, I have some people who I'm like very lucky to call some of my very best friends. But you're right, we didn't meet each other for like a year, and then
Mhm.
I kind of instantly felt like at home when we did meet though, which was really nice. I felt like we all sort of knew each other well enough
Yes.
to sit in a
Yeah.
room together. It was
Yeah.
definitely kind of a surreal sort of out of body experience at times because you're so used to talking to them online or through a screen, but
Yeah.
like
Right. Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
I felt like the foundation was so strong and we all, you know, got along so well. We even sort of had like a shorthand where we kind of just knew each other and could talk to each other really easily. So
Yeah,
yeah.
isn't it not strange, but I mean, isn't it unique that like as a result of this Zoom and COVID and everything, the separation, isn't it, I don't know, isn't it wonderful that when you actually meet somebody in person that you've only seen virtually, it's like you've known them all your life, right? There's
Yeah.
something personal going on there, and it's like, I've only seen you like from thousands of miles away, but here you are right in front of me. I can't believe it. When I
Yeah.
first I met both Ella and Bex's, well, Ella and her mom, and Bex's at a film festival some months later, and
Hmm.
I couldn't believe it. I says, my God, it's like I actually said to them, I says, my gosh, I says, you're real. I says, you're not just
Yeah, yeah.
a two-dimensional image on the screen. I couldn't believe it. So yeah, I share that sentiment and that feeling with you too, that it's
Yeah,
absolutely
absolutely.
unbelievable and surreal. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Speaking of film festivals, I know you're involved in a lot of film festivals, like
Hmm.
one of the bigger film festivals that's there in Toronto every year. So, are any of the projects or films that you've worked on recently or in the past? What film festival circuits are you involved in with those projects?
I think Edwin was the first film I was in, not the first film ever to play at a festival, but the first film festival kind of film that I made that kind of made like a bigger splash and kind of did like a big run of various festivals. So we had a live screening in the UK and Southport, UK at this festival called the Be Beside the Seaside Festival. And Stuart went and he did like a Q&A with the festival director, which was really cool. Edwin also played in a sort of dual, like kind of brother sister kind of festival called the Golden State and the Silver State Festival. Golden in Los Angeles and Silver being in Las Vegas, Nevada. So that was cool. The Las Vegas one was like Halloween weekend, so from what I hear, had a kind of appropriate sort of response and scheduling there. But then one of them that we're really proud of actually was this film festival. It was actually its first year, the year we did it. It was called the Horrific Hope Film Festival. And it is a film festival that has initiatives in place to, support people who are seeking support for mental health. It donates to mental health initiatives. But it's called the Horrific Hope Film Festival. And the first year that it ever ran, we actually won the Audience Choice Award. So that was very, special to us that this festival that'll hopefully continue for many, many years.
Mhm.
We got in there the first year and we were their sort of first audience pick. That really meant a lot to us.
Wow,
And
yeah, that's quite an
um,
achievement, sure.
it screened at a an Alamo Draft House, which also was a very cool detail. That was always a goal of Stuart and I's, because for anyone who doesn't know, they are a chain, but the Alamo Draft House very much has that kind of independent sort of artistic kind of vibe to their cinemas,
Okay.
which we try to reflect in all our work as well. So that was just really cool to have our film screened at a theater that we were familiar with and were big admirers of.
Hmm. And that was probably a better avenue for attraction, having something screened called the Alamo, because it's like almost everybody's heard of the Alamo,
Yeah, yeah,
unless you lived under a rock or in a cave
yeah.
all your life, everybody's heard of like the Alamo. So that was
Mhm.
probably another good extra hook to get people attracted to that film festival there. So
Yeah,
yeah,
for
well,
sure.
uh, my last question, I think maybe not not the best question, but it's the best question that I can think of to to wrap things up here. If you want to talk about say anything, any of your new projects that you haven't talked about yet, but
Mhm.
especially would you like to say something about one of your new projects that's still in the incubation or baby stage, about the Curly Man, which is a man who claims that to have started social media on the
Mhm.
phone lines 40 years ago? I know I've had several conversations with him, and I'll be having him on a future talk show.
Yeah.
So uh, have at it. Would you like to say anything about the Curly Man?
Yeah, absolutely. So Bella met the curly man, Jeff, in Los Angeles, just a completely random chance encounter, and they started getting to chatting, and he gave her this like angel figurine that he makes, as just sort of like a token of goodwill and appreciation and gratitude and nice to meet you sort of gesture. Um, and she started telling me stories about him, and then we connected on social media as well. You somewhat fittingly because he is the man who began all this sort of social media
Yeah,
connection for
right,
us.
right.
Um, but he was telling me his story and stories of growing up in London and DJing in London, and then his eventual move to America, and just like all these like the Curly Man, how he existed as a kind of entity in entertainment and stuff like that. And it was just like such a funny, bizarre kind of story that every time we speak to each other, I'm just like cracking up. And sometimes I'll even just like randomly think of things he says to me. And it's just like such a funny and strange story, but it's also filled with so much like heart and humility and kind of interesting sort of reflections on the past and the present and how his work influenced work that goes on today and stuff like that. That
Oh,
like we sat down, the three of us on a Zoom, and we were just like, well, we have to make this into something. So we've been having discussions all the time about how we're going to bring that idea into fruition. We've started writing it and we started planning some stuff, and I think it'll make a really, really interesting story when we eventually share it with everyone.
yeah, yeah. I know everybody from what I know of it and from the conversations that I've had with
Mhm.
Jeff. This is actually, I think this is just actually going to blow people away with all the
Yeah.
information, like you say, the information that he's told you and Bella, and it's like uh,
Yeah.
we've we we've also spoken together like on Zoom sessions, and most recently recorded some segments that will be aired at a later date. And even besides that, before we even had the Zoom sessions, we would be just talking back and forth phone calls, and it's like it was just so interesting that it's like the phone conversations just kept going back and forth on, and it's like, before you know it, we were talking like, maybe 1 or 2 hours or whatever it was, and it's like, this
Yeah.
guy is really interesting. I really want to know more. And so, he'd give me his ideas, I'd give me him my ideas, about the show. And so finally we kind of worked everything out. And so we were able to kind of do a rough run through of a future talk show, and then finally got things like nailed down and smoothed out. So that's when we did the actual like Zoom recording, which is still in
Yeah.
post production, which So
Yeah.
yeah, I just felt that I just had to finish this talk show interview with you on the Curly Man, because it's very intriguing, and I think it's something not only that people are going to remember for a long time, but I think it's going to affect their thinking like permanently about how all of this came about, the Zoom that we're talking on now,
Yeah.
and the phones that we're using, and the internet, and Google, and it's, like the whole 9 yards. So yeah.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
so Michael, I'd really like to thank you for being on my show today and talking with me, and for graciously accepting my invitation to be on my show. And I wish you nothing but success and the best for the future, for all your film projects, your acting, writing, filmmaking, film festival circulation, and whatever else that you have in store for all of us for the
Yeah.
future. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I
Yeah.
really much appreciate that. And I can't wait to work with you again.
Oh, me either. Me either. Me either. So, is there I ask my guests this all the time, each of my guests. So, before we part ways here, is there any closing thoughts or remarks that you'd like to share with the audience before we close here?
I can't claim credit for this, but I remember reading something in a book once that has always kind of stuck with me, and I think it's a good philosophy for creative types especially. But it's pretty much as simple as, if you want more, you have to do more.
Well,
So basically, to lay that out, I guess, if you want to do something interesting, creative, practice it every day, seek out opportunities wherever you can, and you never know who you're going to meet from it.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I can't think of any better way to close my show with that remark. So that about sums it up right there. So thank you very much for being on my show. And like I said, I look forward to seeing you in future endeavors, whatever they may be. And I wish you to have a good day, a good week, a good month, and a good life.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, everybody, this has been Edward S. Redcar's Entertainer Chat. I'm your host, Edward S. Redcar, and we've been speaking with Michael Lake, actor, filmmaker, writer, amongst all other different things, film festival circulator, and all different things like that. So until next time, have a good day, and we'll see you next time.